Okay, good evening. Today we're going to explain democracy. Today is the first time for explain democracy. This is actually I prepared more than 70 pages, so it takes 4 or 5 times to complete this session. And today I'm going to just briefly all through I'm going to explain through what the content of the democracy I'm going to explain for you. And today is maybe I'm going to explain from democracy ranking to just before American voting system. So 10 to 15 pages I try to explain for you. And democracy itself is very heavy content. I found out. So not easy to understand what is a democracy. Actually, not only democracy, but also need to explain for the other autocracy and oligarchy is the basic 3 political regime we need to explain. So those areas I'm going to explain. Okay, just let me try to explain all through that to the end of this democracy. First of all, today democracy ranking index last year, 2 years ago, 2015, and scoring. And then I'm going to explain a definition, what is democracy, and characteristics. And this is democracy originally came from Greece, Athens. And so those information I'm going to explain for you. And also I'm going to compare with democracy, autocracy and oligarchy. Okay? And actually many people say America, Japan is oligarchy, not democracy. But officially ranking they define their democratic country. But oligarchy is more suitable definition, I believe. And then history of democracy and also follow 4 pillars of democracy, 4 elements of democracy, and modern democracy, then recent development with democracy. And if possible, I can explain for more additional slide. Elections fair or not? Not fair, actually. Vulnerability in U.S. voting system. Maybe I cannot get into this area. U.S. voting. U.S. voting is not fair. It's this very manipulated voting. Actually, machine is controlled by those counterpart people, sort of fake voting and very kind of misleading action operation. Actually, they are doing even now. So several elections I try to explain, looking at the 2008 U.S. elections and 2012 U.S. elections. And also I try to explain U.S. versus U.K. election party spending. Unfair, unequal voting in the United States, and number of democratic nations in the world, and shortcomings of democracy. Then number of countries by regime types, and different type of democracies. 25 democracies in the world. Regimes, autocracy. Autocracy, how come this kind of autocracy? Maybe I try to delete it here, but which system is best? Is Japan a democratic state? China's regime? Turkey's Erdogan? India? Iraq's current government? Kurdish Iraq? American military complex is military complex, because it's talking about the Middle East. So North Korea, South Korea, Russia, Germany, Syria, Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, Joko Widodo's new Indonesia. Africa prefers the Chinese regime. Africa's growth stunted. Stunted is stopped. Africa better without spread of democracy. Arab Spring didn't trigger democracy. Examples of democratic intervention. This is a democratic intervention means America tried to force them to say democracy to Libya, and Middle East, but all countries actually America failed this democratic intervention. Okay, all those is I try to consider for everything about democracy. I try to explain next 1 month, maybe 1 month. I could finish within 1 month. So group is first is today what is democracy, and next week might be what about U.S. democracy. This is U.S. democracy is very special. This is indirect voting system, and their voting is very fake and illegal and wrongdoing actually. Trump said is actually right, what he said right thing. And then I'm going to get into the more diversified of about regarding democracy and any kind of characteristics, shortcomings, and so forth. And third week is I'm going to get into the country by country explanation. And this is I support to spend for 2 weeks. Many countries, so many countries, I'm going to explain. So this time I'm going to ask you your opinion, because this is very much, not, I can't say decisively this is democratic country or this is democracy. This is very much diversified. So I think you need to understand much more better understanding. So I had better discuss with you. So this is all I will make presentation for this democracy. And first slide is actually for focus on video, but this is shows democracy ranking index. This is a weighted average based on the answers of 60 questions. Each one is either 2 or 3 permitted alternative answers. Questions are distributed to 5 categories. What is categories? Electoral process and pluralism. How many parties do they have? Not one. Civil liberties, functioning of government, and political participation, and political culture. These are 5 categories they made a question for. Then this is a global mapping, and darker is more democratic country, and white, yellow and white is non-democratic country. Like you can see Russia and China is oligarchy, and some countries, Africa is white country is autocrat. Okay, so this Japan is democratic country is shown 8 to 9, 7 to 8. Australia is completely democracy, and North Baltic countries is democracy. And this is, I think, the first issue is you can have a look 15 minutes video. This is very good video, and then you can let's see, consider watching video. This is hitting the point. Okay. Also, he is talking about American election. And also he is talking about the pitfall, shortcoming of the democracy. And so I want to get your opinion. And just have a look, 15 minutes. Then I want to discuss with you. Maybe in the content of those content, maybe you are the first time to listen. Okay, this is very not very new. This time I just watch many YouTube. But I tell you, 80% of YouTube is, let's see, very difficult to understand. Why very difficult is it? I believe democracy, explanation of democracy might be not easy. So I try to pick easiest one out of 20, out of 100 today, okay? Yeah. Easiest one. And the sophisticated and difficult one is eliminated. Of course, you can have a look at YouTube for 10 times, maybe you can understand, but it's losing time. So I think this video I picked up is the very best one, but you can find a more better one. Okay, so this is a very best one. why I picked a couple of TED, because TED is, this is 20 minutes presentation, and democracy, if you have a look, 4 or 5 minutes videos, you cannot answer nothing at all. Of course I pick up a couple of those, but this is 20 minutes, but this is, otherwise you can understand much better.
So, it turns out exactly a year ago, right now, right this minute, a year ago in Hong Kong, an extraordinary protest began. Protest begun by students, literally high school and college students, elementary school students. Then their parents felt a little embarrassed that they had let the kids work so hard, so the parents showed up as well. And the protest was about a law. And the law was proposed by China. The law was to determine how the governor of Hong Kong would be selected. And the law said the ultimate aim was the selection.
Okay, just ultimate aim is the selection of the chief executive by universal suffrage upon nomination by broadly representative nominating committee in accordance with something. What this sentence saying is broadly representative nominating committee. This is mainly influenced by Chinese government. So they voting 7 million people voting this candidate, but actually this broadly representative nominating committee is organized by 1,200 people. 1,200 people, and 1,200 people is this is actually nominating people. So it means even if they try to okay, 7 million voters is just only can vote for just screened by representative nominating committee. It means 0.02% population defined candidate already. This is very much Chinese government influence. So this is not the reason that he's talking about. Okay, just this is background. Very difficult otherwise.
Election of the chief executive by universal suffrage upon nomination by a broadly representative nominating committee in accordance with democratic procedures. Okay, so the idea was there's a two-step process. The first step was nomination, and then the second step was an election. And the nominating committee would be comprised of about 1,200 people, which means out of 7 million people, that is 0.02% of Hong Kong. Okay, now 0.02%, as you can see, is a really tiny number, right? Really, really small. If you thought about it relative to all the people in Hong Kong, it would look something like this. This tiny little corner is 0.02%.
You can see that.
So 0.02% get to pick the candidates that the rest of Hong Kong gets to vote among, and the protest was because the fear was this filter would be a biased filter. The claim was that the 0.02% would be dominated by a pro-Beijing business and political elite, so 99.98% would be excluded from this critical first step, with the consequence obviously of producing a democracy responsive to China only. Okay, now it turns out...
So this time is who is elected this top of this Hong Kong organization is, she is China favored lady, right? That'll be based on this election.
The Chinese stole this idea from America. Don't worry, there's no patent or copyright, there's no IP violations going on here, but they stole the idea from an American, maybe the greatest political philosopher in America, a man named Boss Tweed. Boss Tweed, the head of the Tammany Hall political party, used to say, I don't care who does the...
So he said, Tweed method. Pick up the name of this guy. Okay?
Electing, as long as I get to do the nominating. So this conception, this kind of conception of politics has an obvious logic to it, right? Because if you control the nomination, every candidate is going to worry what you, the nominator, think. So you practically control the candidate, whether or not you control the ultimate election. We can call that genius theory for destroying democracy, Tweedism. Tweedism. Any two-stage process where the Tweeds get to nominate
So first he just proposing is, he said, is this democracy? And tweedism, he said, tweed, the name of the person. And the nominating committee is already tweeted. So it means bias, right? So he said, is this democracy? He said, no.
And then the rest get to select is tweedism, and the consequence of tweedism obviously is to produce a system responsive to tweets only. Now tweedism was practiced not just in the North, not just in New York, it was practiced in the South too. Texas, 1923, practiced tweedism. By law in 1923, Texas passed a statute that said in the Democratic primary, only whites could vote. Only whites could vote. Blacks could vote in the general election if, of course, they could get registered, given all the barriers to registration. But
you understand, right? So this is tweet. Only the first screening, just only white people.
Yeah.
So it means physically, white candidate will going to be on the election. So the black people cannot select any black people.
Or male only.
That's right.
only
male only.
whites could vote in the Democratic primary. And, of course, back then, hard to imagine, but back then the only party that mattered was the Democratic Party in
By the way,
Texas.
I didn't know that. And also Athens, 2,000 years ago, only male. And I don't know why. This is China is 2,500 years ago, only male. Woman, every woman is slave. And very interesting is Europe is the same. Socrates' wife is very strong, is very famous, right? Why is so strong? Is China is the same. Women, they in the Athens, and old people buy wife from everywhere. He can pay much money, higher ranking woman can buy. Okay, buy wife. And whenever after buying wife, then get in house, she get power. And this is okay. This is very important. And I did a couple months ago for the rape, Nazi massacre, and I explained the Nazi rape and every other country what they did. Actually, this is whenever they soldiers rape women, right? And after that, some of those he liked her, then gradually loved her. Then he loved her. After that, she looked more stronger than soldier, right? So kind of things happening in the history, 2,500 years ago until now. So rape is also there. Many people talking about like comfort woman sort of things. But this is ugly woman is maybe rape, but beautiful woman is never rape. She is going to be more stronger power whenever that after raping. I believe that. This is different meaning. It is not the same as like a killing or some war kind of sort of thing. Okay, by the way, let's continue.
So in this two-stage process, blacks were excluded from the first stage. 16% of Texas excluded from this critical first stage, with the consequence obviously producing a democracy responsive to whites only. Now those cases are obvious to us. Everyone looks at that and says there's something obviously wrong with those so-called democracies to set up their structure in that way. So why don't we see it here? We take it for granted in the United States that campaigns will be privately funded. But we need to recognize funding is its own contest. Funding is its own...
Okay, now he's talking about moving to the current American election. And he's first of all, he's talking about first of the issues, how to collect money. And this is actually the person paid money, he's governed the government, right? So he want to say.
In the primary, we have the voting system where people vote, but in the first stage to that there is a money primary that determines which candidates are allowed to run in those voting elections. Now that money primary takes time. Members of Congress and candidates for Congress spend anywhere between 30 and 70% of their time dialing for this is an old tale.
Unbelievable, 30 to 70 time, and say he tried to collect money. And later he's going to explain that every kind of decision influenced by those people who paid money. So ordinary people, even what kind of proposal, opinion to the government, nothing in the States. Japan is more democracy rather than America. America is nothing happening. Right? I didn't know that he is very good presentation.
I recognize this, but dialing for dollars, calling people all across the country to get the money they need to run their campaigns.
But I tell you, Trump is different. Trump is not influenced by like money, paying money people. Right?
To get their party back into power. P.F. Skinner gave us this wonderful image of the Skinner box where any stupid animal could learn which buttons it needed to push for its sustenance. This is a picture of the life of the modern American congressperson. As the modern American congressperson comes to learn which buttons he or she needs to push to get the sustenance he or she needs to make his or her campaign successful. This is their life and it has an effect. Each of them, as they do this, develop a sixth sense, a constant awareness about how what they do might affect their ability to raise money. They become, in the words of the X-Files, shape-shifters, as they constantly adjust their views in light of what they know will help them to raise money, not in issues 1 to 10, but in issues 11 to 1,000. Leslie Byrne, a Democrat from Virginia, describes that when she went to Congress, she was told by a colleague, quote, always lean to the green. And to clarify, she
Okay, the green is dollar.
went on, you know, he was not an environmentalist. So this obviously is a primary too. It's the money primary. It's not a white primary, it's the green primary. It's the first stage in a multi-stage process to select the candidates who will represent us. So if this is the structure, we should interrogate who are the funders. Well, we can think about who the biggest funders are. In 2014, the top 100 gave as much as the bottom 4.7.
Okay, top 100 gave as much as the bottom 4.75 million funders. So it means who govern this country by top 100 people. Right? That is the reason Trump tried to get rid of those people. Get out of those 100 people. But
75 million funders to congressional campaigns. In this election cycle so far, 400 families have given half the money in the election contributions and contributions to super PAC so far. 400 families.
so I didn't know that. How come super PAC? They collect huge money. The reason is now I understand. 400 people try to ask government, you try to pass this bill or just against this bill, solve decisions they can make, and they can get money through this activity, right?
That's not American democracy. That is banana republic democracy. And then we can think not just about the biggest funders, but think about the relevant funders. Of course, the people giving millions of dollars have the attention of the members of Congress. But how much do you need to give to be relevant? How much do you need to give to matter to those Congress people as they're dialing for dollars to raise money from you? Well, let's take the people who maxed out in 2014. And in 2014, that means you gave $5,200 to at least one candidate in the general primary and in the general election. 2014, it turns out 57,874 Americans maxed out in that way. So we could say 57,874 gave enough to matter, to control, to be the dominant force in this first stage of the election process. And then some of you out there, the math geniuses out there, digging through the numbers, you're thinking 57,874. Wait a minute. That's 0.02% of America. 0.02% of America dominate this first stage in the process of electing the candidates who will represent us. They pick the candidates, because you can't be credible unless you get their money, and we get to vote for those candidates. This tiny fraction of the 1%, this Chinese fraction of the 1%, dominate this first stage with the consequence, obviously, of producing a democracy responsive to these funders only. It's a Princeton study, which is a Harvard professor. I'm not allowed to talk about much, so let's get it off the stage quick. By Martin Gillens and Ben Page, the largest empirical study of actual decisions by our government in the history of political science. Related the actual decisions of our government over the past 40 years with the views of the economic elites, the views of organized interest groups, and the views of the average voter. And what they found was there was a nice correlation between the views of the economic elite and what our government actually did. So as you go from 0% of the elite supporting something to 100%, the probability of that proposal being passed goes up. Same thing with organized special interest groups. As the number of them supports something increases.
This means I don't understand very well about this chart. But what he wanted to say, paying lots of money and this bill will going to be affected or passed by the funder. Funder pay a lot of money. Just actually that they can handle the government action. That's he want to say. So interest group, alignment means interest group passing the bill. Okay, if they going to pay a lot of money.
Probability of that proposal being passed goes up. Here's the graph for the average voter.
This one is he's talking about the average voter means normal people. No funder people, ordinary people. These people, none of bill passing. It means they never listen to the audience. Okay?
Flat line. Flat line, literally and figuratively. What this is saying is, as the percentage of average voters supporting a proposal goes from 0 to 100.
Okay, proposal goes from 0 to 100. It means nothing. The government don't do anything at all for the average voter.
Percent. It doesn't change the probability that proposal will be enacted. As they put in English, when the preferences of the economic elites and the stand.
Oh, you can read this. When the preference of the economic elite and the stand of organized interest groups are controlled for. Okay?
So organized interest groups are controlled for. The preferences of the average American appear to have
only a minuscule, near zero, statistically no significant impact upon public
opinion. Only a minuscule, near zero, statistically non-significant impact on public policy in a democracy.
I didn't know that. This is a fact, he said. So America is just, I told you, oligarchy, not democracy. Right? So that's the reason Obama, for 8 years, middle class disappeared. Why? Middle class, they don't consider for middle class. Even Obama, they couldn't take care of those. All bills, all government decision is made by big funders, 400 families.
But America's case is more diverse, interest group or the opinions of
yeah, last week I told you just only the top 4 rich person own the bottom 25.
Hong Kong case is more.
But American case is actually the 400 families dominant in the country, right? Even if diversified, but just 400 people, right? Hong Kong is 1,200 committee member.
But influenced by maybe
mainland China. American case is different. American case is rich people only chasing money. American case is only chasing money. It's rich people get more rich. And this kind of problem currently they are confronting with. So this democracy, especially for America case, election itself is flawed and also rigged and not manipulating a lot. Sort of, but how come Trump could win? Because of Hillary had very bad, many people know that she tried to manipulate a lot of things. for election and everything else. So ordinary people didn't know that. So that's the reason they hate Hillary instead of also they hate Trump, but more hate Hillary. Okay, this one is.
This is true. All right, so here's the picture that we had. We were told of our democracy. There we were, citizens driving the bus. But
Yeah,
here's
it's
the
a
reality.
good example.
The
Like
reality is, the reality is the steering wheel has become detached from this bus. We don't drive the bus anymore. We do not, that anecdotally, in the most aggressive empirical analysis, have no relationship to what our government does. This is a product of tweedism. Tweedism. And what tweedism is first corruption. It's a corruption of the design of our representative democracy. When Madison gave us our representative democracy, he described it in Federalist 52 to be a system that would have a branch, Congress, that would be, quote, dependent on the people alone, an exclusive dependence. But that's not our Congress. They're dependent on the people and dependent on the Tweeds. And then to go on, to clarify, Madison in Federalist 57 said, by the people, he means, quote, not the rich more than the poor. Not the rich more than the poor. But that's not our reality. The people today mean not the rich more than the poor, except for the Tweeds. The Tweeds have more power than the middle class and the poor. This is corruption. It's not criminals. It's a system in which decent people who come to this city to do the right thing find themselves bent to do the thing the Tweeds demand, because that's the only way you can survive. It is corruption, but it is caused by a basic inequality that we've allowed to evolve inside of our representative system, an inequality.
So what he want to say. He said corruption, right? China is also corruption, but the top people not corrupted. But America is top people corrupted. He wanted to say.
Yeah.
So he implied, okay, China is better, right? And American democracy no the same as China, oligarchy, right? But bad oligarchy. He wanted
Remember
to say.
Orwell's all animals are created equal, and what we've got here, all animals are created equal, but the Tweeds are more equal than others. It is inequality. But what's critical about recognizing that it's inequality is if we could remove the inequality, if we could address that fundamental inequality in this representative democracy, if we could neutralize this Tweedism, then we could crack the corruption that makes it impossible for our government to do any of the things we want our government
Okay, he's proposing, okay?
to do. We could achieve a system dependent on the people alone, because only the people would be having the influence inside that government. It would be a system where not the rich more than the poor were the people, because everyone would, because of this equality, have the capacity to press the government in the direction they want the government to press. Equality. I'm not talking about wealth equality. That's important to worry about too. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the equality we have as citizens. Now to get that, what I've been arguing we need to talk about is a statute that Congress ought to pass tomorrow. Statute, let's call it the Citizen Equality Act. What the Citizen Equality Act does first is it changed the way campaigns are funded, to make it so that instead of this green primary, we have a money primary, but citizens are funding these campaigns as much as anyone else. The money comes from all of us through proposals like the American Anti-Corruption Act or John Sarbanes' Government by the People Act that would provide small dollar public funding to fund congressional campaigns. So that
Okay, he proposing is not like a tweeism. Every ordinary people pay fund for the candidate. So everybody should be equal. Try to control for the fundraising.
they wouldn't be dependent on this tiny few to fund their campaigns. That's the critical first dimension.
But I tell you, never pass the bill. because candidate want money more,
Mm.
right? So every population going to pay $100 instead of 10 million US dollars from 400 families. It's more efficient, right?
Mm.
Of equality, we ought to insert back into this representative democracy. And there's other inequalities inside of our system. We need equal representation inside of our system. This article, this fantastic article written by...
Oh, this one is, this is chart of America, just gerrymandering. Do you know gerrymandering? And this is the area for electorate area for each person. And so candidate, they try to intentionally select area for he get pass his election. This is gerrymandering. So this one is very strange. This is map, right?
Mm.
Very strange map because they just select try to get past exam election.
Christopher Ingraham for the Washington Post graphs these gerrymandered districts in the United States. These are congressional districts in the United States. Here's my favorite example of this. You can see the natural community that bonds these people together here. This is a system, they said it's crimes against geography. That's kind of a nice way of putting it. But this is a system where the politicians are picking the voters. The voters aren't picking the politicians, and they pick the voters.
Maybe he said here or not somewhere else. I just didn't know that. Out of 400 election college is the member of the selecting president. Okay, just electoral college, election college is ordinary people who select him. Okay, and these people is 150 people is already fixed because of